There's a device that I've been using called a Whoop.
Hello, and welcome back to the 5th season of the International Game of Whoop. I, in-house director Dan, am your host while Skittles is away at Tiny Whoop Open 3. And in this video, we're going to be covering IGOW 5 Preseason Training Ground Challenge number 3, that's the Nick Burns Powerloops. So don't worry, IGOWers, we may not have Skittles this week, but I've arranged for a former IGOW champion who is world-renowned for his powerlooping abilities to break down the challenge for you. So you can enter your best guess as to who that former IGOW champion is that I'm referring to in the live chat or the comments below while we watch the Emacs example submissions.
Here are the beginner requirements for IGOW 5 Preseason Training Ground Challenge number 3, the Nick Burns Powerloops. So for this challenge, the first thing you're going to need to do is find or set up an over-under obstacle. That's anything you can fly over and under. And I'm going to use this zip line thing here in the playground for my obstacle. So to complete the challenge, you need to perform a power loop on the obstacle. So you do that by first flying underneath the obstacle, then leaning back, powering over, completing the loop, and then throttling up and flying again under the obstacle to complete your power loop. Fly away cleanly, complete a flip or a roll to celebrate that you've done a power loop and completed the beginner challenge of the Nick Burns Power Loop. Here are the intermediate requirements for IGOW 5 Preseason Training Ground Challenge number 3, the Nick Burns Power Loops. So the first thing you're going to need for this challenge is an IGOW standard size gate. That's a maximum of 28 inches from side to side, open on a square, and you're going to want to raise that gate up like I have it hanging from the ceiling here, because the requirement is to perform a power loop with the gate at the top. Then fly away under control, perform a celebration flipper roll, and you've completed the intermediate challenge for the Nick Burns Power Loops. Here are the advanced requirements for IGOW 5 Preseason Training Ground Challenge number 3, the Nick Burns Power Loops. So for this challenge, you're going to need an over-under obstacle. You can have multiple, but I'm going to use this full pipe here at the skate park. So the first trick you're going to need to do is a double power loop, which is simply 2 loops linked together back to back. So that's our first requirement. Then the second is a power flip, which is simply a power loop with an extra flip at the top. You can do a front flip or a back flip, but I prefer a back flip because I think it looks the best with power loop. And finally, it's a power roll, and that is a power loop with a roll at the top. And you can do left or right roll, doesn't matter, whichever you prefer. And then you've completed the Nick Burns Power Loops Challenge.
And next, I'm going to roll the sponsor segment for this challenge's title sponsor, the IGOW legend himself, Nick Burns. Dan Sugano, aka Skittles here, and I just wanted to take a second to let you all know a little bit about the history of Nick Burns and IGOW and why he's such an important figure to IGOW, probably the most important in IGOW history. So back when I created IGOW, I don't even know how many years, 6 years ago now. Anyway, the idea was to kind of get more people involved in our battle group that we had, which was sort of like IGOW challenges, but you challenged each other. Anyway, I saw a skateboard version of the challenge created by Johnny Geiger, awesome YouTuber, check him out, link. And he had a similar version of skate where everyone played around the world, and I thought that would be awesome for FPV, so I created IGOW, and I had maybe 20 people, like all the locals and some of the other pilots I knew from online that had joined. But it didn't really get big until I was reaching out to different people, and most of them just ignored me, like a lot of the other YouTubers, Albert Kim. And
But Nick Burns took his time. He actually read the email that I sent him and he thought it was a really cool idea. He made a video about it on his YouTube channel without even me asking, and he joined the first IGOW, and he actually placed in the, like 50th place in the top half of the pilots. It was really awesome, and he was putting out the videos, challenges each week, and it really blew IGOW up. We got over 100 participants in the first year alone, mostly thanks to Nick Burns. And since then, he's been a huge promoter and supporter, and of course sponsor, like he is again this year. So every year I'm always excited when Nick Burns puts out his video about IGOW, because we always get a big bump in registrations, because it brings it to in the front of the eyeballs of a bunch of new pilots, because Nick has such a big channel and he's such an awesome reviewer. He gets a ton of reviews and a ton of subscribers, and that's well deserved because of his content is so informative, especially when you're getting into FPV and you don't know what to buy and there's so many options. Having someone that gives great honest reviews like Nick is just a super valuable resource. So having him promote IGOW and tell people that it's a great way to fly always brings in a ton of pilots. And last time in IGOW 4 he did a giveaway and required people to register for IGOW to be eligible for that giveaway, and that blew up the pilot pool. So we're hoping to do that again this year. There's going to be a giveaway. If you saw his initial video, he talked about that. So stay tuned to his channel, go over there and subscribe, and be sure to follow along with the preseason if you're not already participating. And again, huge thanks to Nick Burns. I can't say thank you enough. Without Nick, IGOW might have just died out after a season or two, but it definitely wouldn't be as big as it is today. So Nick Burns, IGOW legend.
Oh man, Nick Burns is the best, but you probably already knew that. Okay, so without much further ado, let me introduce the IGOW champion guest presenter, Daylight FPV. Come on up here, Daylight.
We have to quickly get out of here. Dan will catch us if we don't. There's not much time to explain, but we're in danger. Dan thinks power loops are easy, but they're not. They're one of the hardest tricks to pull off in the book. Quickly, we have to prove him wrong before it's too late. Hello. You may not know who I am, and we don't have much time, but my name is Daniel, and Dan is looking for me. I took his GoPro, and I'm here to teach you how to do power loops. He thinks they're easy. They're not. Take it from me, an IGOW champion. They're not easy. Agilis, he made me do like 40 power loops in a row with constant loop motion. That wasn't okay. I will take my vengeance on him someday, but not today. I will teach you how to properly power loop. So, I have my trusty whoop here with me. I have my goggles. I have my radio. And I have plenty and plenty of space to do the power loop. So, let's get right into it. So, power loops are pretty simple when you think about it, but in application, they're not so easy all the time. So, when doing a power loop, you want to find your object. Finding the object is important because whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, you always need to know your surroundings, and that's the most important part. So, for you beginners out there, we're gonna find massive object. So, I've decided that this tree over here is that perfect object. So first, figure out your object and figure out how much space you have. Having space is important, mainly because when you have to do a power loop, you might need a little bit of space. So, we have our object. We'll do a little orbit around it, measure it up, see how long it takes to really get around the tree. It really helps to size up your object and be ready to take it on. It's really about taking your time and doing practice. Because right now there's a bunch of wind and I can feel it. and it's really important to take your time and make sure you clear yourself. So, you see, come back through, clear myself, and right through. So, pretty simple. Not too hard, but now let's get a little bit more complicated with it. Let's go for an even tighter object. We're gonna go through the wing of the car if we can. No, that's a little too hard. Okay, maybe not that, but we'll just power loop the whole car. So, level it up, go through, power loop, and then come back through. And just like that, we power looped a 1986 Toyota MR2. I'm going to brag about my car. Yes, shamelessly.
What's happening? Where you going, Daylight? I can never get anything right. What just happened? I guess I gotta call Skittles. Hey, Dan. Hey, what's up? It's me, Dan. Oh, hey, Dan. Yeah, I'm having an issue right now. So, I've arranged for former IGOW champion Daylight FPV to do the Powerloops breakdown. Good choice. He's excellent at Powerloops. Yeah, I know. But when he got here, I introduced him, and then he just grabbed the GoPro and ran off. I don't know what to do. Whoa, that's crazy. I'm still in Colorado, but we. Sorry, Pete. We, my best friend Nightwing and I, can put something together for you pretty quick, I think. That would be so helpful. Okay, sounds good. I'll get started. Okay, awesome.
This is Nightwing. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so when you're going to do a basic open air power loop, you want to find a nice spot. I like to have a spot that there's kind of like a street. I think is decent, except for if you crash, it's going to be a little bit harder of an impact. But finding a line or something that you can like fly straight up and down is a really good way to make sure that you're not drifting too far left or too far right. So once you find a good spot that you're going to go for the power loop, you're going to fly forward and then slowly increase the throttle. As you increase the throttle, you're going to pitch backwards on the right stick until you're upside down and flying backwards. And then keep pitching backwards until you see the ground and slowly catch yourself by re-engaging the throttle, and then you have completed a power loop. If you're going to be doing this maneuver with a whoop or a smaller drone that's more affected by the wind, make sure that you do this so that the wind is going to be blowing backwards, kind of blowing you over your obstacle that you're going to power loop. What else should I say?
That's good. Now go into how you would do it on an obstacle.
Okay.
Can you do like a tree? Is there enough room to do it?
Yeah, we can power loop this tree. So when you're going to power loop an obstacle, the most important thing is to make sure that you actually get all the way over the obstacle. So it's okay to go to the moon at first when you're first practicing this, and then as you get better and figure out like how tall the obstacle is, whoops, that wasn't enough, you can add more or add less throttle to get over it. But when you're going to be power looping an obstacle, you want to start by flying under it and then punching up, and then doing the same maneuver, just pitching back slightly until you are flying upside down backwards. And then once you see that you've come over the obstacle, you're going to continue pitching backwards until you catch yourself. So right now the wind is blowing me a little bit to the left, so I kind of have to roll a little to the right to counter it. Yeah, so that's why if you have the opportunity, you want to be going with the wind. So it would be better to kind of power loop it this way at this angle. Anyways, I feel like I need a better obstacle to power loop.
Yeah, that was good though. That was perfect. That's nice. The one other thing I would try to tell you is you're really good at just naturally keeping it smooth. You like.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay, so when you're pulling out of the power loop, that's the hard, like
or like, I don't know. So when you're pulling out of the power loop, it's super easy to just jam the throttle again to try and catch yourself to make sure you don't hit the ground. And then you're gonna hit some prop wash potentially, or just, it's gonna not look super smooth. So a great way to keep that like exit smooth is to continue that, keep the pitch going at the same pace. So however fast you're flipping the drone in your power loop, that's what you want to try and maintain when you're pulling out of the power loop as well. And so, and then when you're coming close to the ground again is when you really want to engage the throttle, but really engage it slowly. You don't want to just jab the throttle again, because that'll make it look all jerky. And you really want to just slowly engage the throttle. And when you're watching my hands, you'll notice that I'm not like hitting full throttle to catch this drone. You don't really ever need to hit full throttle unless you got like a really tight gap that you're pulling through. But yeah, I'm only hitting like about half throttle on the catch here. And then you just kind of got to trust your line and ride it out.
Skittles here. Peter just gave us a beautiful explanation of how to do a power loop, especially if you're using a little bit of a heavier type mini quad like he was there, a 3-inch. But for a whoop, you're a little bit more affected by the elements sometimes. So the first thing I like to do is check the wind, so we can see that it's clearly blowing this way. So when we choose our loop direction, I'm going to use myself as the obstacle here. You definitely want to be using the wind to push yourself backwards and over the obstacle rather than fighting it when you're trying to go over. So we're going to be doing our loops flying forward against the wind, and then upside down and backwards with the wind. All right, so Peter's loops and a beautiful looking loop that has constant loop speed and loop motion, like he was showing there, kind of like that, where you stay the same speed through the whole loop. Looks beautiful, and it's a great way to do a loop, but it's a little bit harder on a whoop sometimes. So the way my loops typically look, especially when I'm doing them on a 65mm whoop, it's kind of like that, where I have more of a toss and a flick at the top, and both of these will count for constant loop motion, because you don't have to have a constant loop speed to do a constant loop motion loop. So the basic idea is that if you're viewing yourself kind of from the side here, that the loop would have a circle or at least an oval shape path while you're performing it. Okay, so yeah, wind has definitely picked up a bit now, so it's going to be tossing us a little bit more, and that's going to affect you a lot more on a whoop. And it makes doing like the, see, now the wind is blowing this way again. It's completely shifted. So see, if I do the loop this way, it helps me drift back, but if I do the loop this way, it's going to push me. See, and then I stall out with the same toss. I almost came down on top of myself. So that's, you definitely want to be aware of the wind when you're doing loops on a whoop. Okay, so another important point is that if you are going to be doing self loops, definitely don't use a open prop drone. That's not safe, and IGOW does not recommend that or suggest that you do that. Definitely use a ducted whoop if you're going to be using yourself, and if you're going to be using yourself as an obstacle, you probably want to fly from your front to your back and then loop over yourself from the back, because if you do happen to come up short and hit yourself, probably want to hit yourself in the back or the back of the head rather than in the face. So you could feel, wow, the wind has really picked up and it's blowing us the opposite way that it was before. So let's switch now. All right, turn around, and it's blowing us back this way. So let's see if we can get dialed in and get some tight loops on ourselves. So first, we want to make sure we complete the loop, no problem, plenty of room. All right, there's a little bit smaller one, getting a little tighter, a little bit less and less. Let's see how tight we can go. Oh, and then that one there wasn't enough toss. So let's try this again. Let's get a few more here. I feel like the wind's blowing me sideways now also, so I'm having to adjust for that to keep on line. Oh, and here comes a car, and I'm standing in the middle of the road. Also not super safe. Okay, so when you're setting up an obstacle, the first thing you want to think about is the area where you're going to be doing your loops and what direction you want to loop. So I've set up this gate here as a simple obstacle for our first loops, and as you can see, it's very clear out back on this side, but on this side I've got a tree and a fence and a bunch of stuff in the way, so if I were to do my loops this way, I can still do them, but I have much less area, margin for error. I got to get my toss just right. Whereas if I do my loops this way, I can really just send it as far back as I want, and I have plenty of extra space. So I would start going that direction. The wind is picking up. Ideally, you can toss yourself so that you're using the wind to help push yourself back. And right now it's kind of sideways, and it's just knocked over our obstacle there. But what you want to do, especially if you're using something big like a tree here, if we're using our gate, that's a lot easier to size up. But if you're going to use a big obstacle like a tree, your first loops, you definitely want to do a huge send it to the moon loop that goes way up and way past and over the obstacle to make sure you clear it, because you don't want to get stuck, like especially if you're doing a tree when you're going up, or not clear it far enough and not be able to do the loop. And then as you kind of get used to the area, you can start to use less and less toss, so you can get yourself tighter and tighter to the obstacle. We got a little bit of wash there because of the wind, but as you can see here, now we're just barely tossing over the tree after we got comfortable with about the size. So you can do the same thing here on a more simple obstacle. See how tight you can get your loops. See, plenty big there. Getting a little tighter. Got to make sure to toss myself far enough back. That's where I start going a little bit too much up and not enough back. Oh, like, and then there I went too tight finally. So that's a basic approach to a standard power loop and how you want to set up your obstacles for this IGOW challenge. Okay, so for the intermediate challenge, you're going to need to set up an IGOW standard gate. Again, remember 28 inches max, and you're going to need to have that elevated up in the air in some way. It's not bad to do it inside because there's no wind, but if you could, it'd be better if there wasn't something like a ceiling above, so if you go too high, you'd hit it, but that's kind of hard to set like a gate just out in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, the next piece of advice I have is if you have a whoop that has a little more camera angle or an adjustable cam, it will help if you have more camera angle for this trick, because you're going to need to spot your gate in your loop while you're going back. So the more camera angle you have, the earlier you can see the gate in your loop, and that helps you spot it. So just a little bit of advice there. And first we're going to go over a beginner loop called a Maverick Loop, and that'll help us get lined up for the more accurate loops where we're trying to hit a gap at the top, which might actually turn out to be one of the more difficult parts of the challenge, because the advanced and the beginners, you can go as high as you want at the top of your loop, but for the intermediate, you got to be accurate at the top while you're upside down, which is challenging at first. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so to start, we're going to go over a Maverick Loop, which is probably should have been explained in the beginner part, but it also helps you be accurate with your loops. And a Maverick Loop is simply when you do a loop, you fly forward through the obstacle, lean back, and then just lean back forward and go through the obstacle again. So it's like a power loop without the flip at the top, kind of a beginning, getting the motion down type loop. So if we do that again, we fly forward through the obstacle, then we go up a little and lean back. Instead of flipping all the way over, then we just come down, point forward, and go back through the gate again. So let's do that a little smoother here. Fly forward through the gate, lean back, point down, and go through. So that's like the beginning of a loop, because you start the same way. You fly forward through, you lean back and power up, but then instead of completing the loop, you just look back down and go forward through. And that's obviously a little easier because you don't have to do the full flip. So let's see if we can turn it into a power loop. So there as well. So you see, instead, Maverick Loop at the top, you point back down and go through, whereas with the power loop, you just complete the loop. Alright, so now when we're transitioning to doing the loop at the top, we need to be accurate while we're going up and backwards. So we really want to know our space. It's going to take a few tries, and if you can practice in the simulator, that is definitely where you want to go first, because this is going to probably involve some crashes if you've never attempted it before. If you do practice in the sim, try to get your cam angle as accurate as possible, because that is going to be what kind of gets the feel down. So when you're approaching this, let's also go with the Maverick Loop first, right? So we're going to fly forward underneath our obstacle, and we're going to lean back, power up, and then point down and go back under. So that should be a little bit easier than the power loop at first, and help you kind of gauge the height you need to do the loop. And then eventually, once you feel comfortable with that, you probably want to clear the area directly behind where you're standing, or where your loop is in the line. Makes sense. So that you don't hit yourself. Okay, so now that we're out of the way, we can toss ourselves a little further back without hitting ourselves. So again, just lean back, try to spot it. If you have enough cam angle, try to spot the gate, toss yourself. Oh, see, that's the problem with having a ceiling a little too close, right? I just popped too high and I hit right into the ceiling. So having a ceiling above makes it a little more difficult. If you can, have the gate in open space, but that's not as easy to hang a gate, obviously. Anyway, so again, underneath, lean back, catch, and fly back under. All right. So once you can see, we're starting to spot it there. We're still going a little high, almost hitting the roof. But we can lean back, we can almost see the gate there when we get in the right position. And then come back under, right? So in the Maverick Loop, it's a little harder to have perfect constant loop motion. You gotta dip down pretty quick. But that's not part of the challenge, that's just to help you kind of learn. So now let's transition into the loop. So basically what we have to do now is when we're doing this part of the loop just at the top, instead of leaning back down, we got to complete the loop. See if we can get it first try. Okay, so there I was a little bit soft, right? I didn't toss quite high enough, so I hit the bottom of the gate. Try this again. And then, okay, a little bit hard. So, okay, so there, that was a little bit hard. So we're looking for Goldilocks zone right in between. And there we go, we got it. So again, go under, lean back, repeat the loop, catch yourself, fly forward, and that's the intermediate challenge for the Nick Burns Power Loop. There's another fail. So you're not going to get it every time, especially when you're first learning, but the more you kind of get it, the more accurate you can be. You can start to line it up just on other obstacles. Now an IGOW size gate is not the biggest obstacle, so don't be discouraged if you're having some trouble at first. This is a pretty difficult trick, so just give it your best. And I'm sure if you practice enough, eventually you'll be able to nail it, most of the time. All right. So now we're going to move into the advanced part of the challenge, and that is simply some power loop variations. So we've been doing all standard loops in the beginner and the intermediate parts of the challenge, but for the advanced part of the challenge, we're going to do some variations for the loop. So the first trick in the advanced challenge is just what we refer to as a double loop, which is just doing 2 power loops back to back, immediately one after another, and that's a double loop. Very simple, nothing complicated. You just have to turn the end of your first loop into the start of your second loop and complete them both, and then that's a double loop. Our next trick is going to be a power flip, which is simply a power loop with an extra flip at the top. So I like to do a back flip because it kind of works in with the power loop. You're already pitching back and you just add an extra back flip there at the top and then complete your power loop. But you can also do it with a front flip if you like. It looks pretty cool as well, I think. Kind of a different feel to it. Okay, or I could send it into the ground and fuck my camera up. Where were we before we so rudely broke our drone? We were doing some power flips, right? So again, just a loop. That was a fail because I didn't go through the obstacle a second time. if you're setting up an obstacle, you got to make sure it's resilient. Oh, look at this. Smart man, he's putting it, now the wind's going to blow it into the car until it shifts in 2 minutes, and then it's going to be blowing the other way. All right. And action. All right, so we've adjusted our obstacle, so hopefully it won't fall over in the wind as much. And let's go into some more power flips here. Again, a power flip is just a power loop with an extra flip at the top. I like to do a back flip because it kind of rolls with the loop you're already doing. As you can see, kind of links together, but you can do it with a front flip. It kind of has a different flavor to it. So you want to go back, see the other horizon, front flip. Whoa! I do suck at front power flips. I forget what Downtown called them. Okay. And then our final trick after power flips is power rolls, and that should be pretty self-explanatory. That's just a power loop with a roll at the top. Okay, I didn't really complete the roll cleanly. There we go. Let's try the other roll direction. So, you can do it left or right. You just have to do one of each of those 3 tricks. The double loop, just 2 power loops, immediately back to back. And then you got to do your power flip, front or back, just one of them. And then your power roll. And you've completed the advanced requirements of IGOW Preseason Training Ground Challenge number 3, the Nick Burns Power Loops. One more piece of advice for the power flip and power roll. On a normal power loop, you never really have to fully chop your throttle. You can kind of always leave it powering you through the loop, hence power loop, right? But if you're gonna add the extra roll or flip at the top, if you leave your throttle on, it's gonna make a really weird motion and kind of mess up your loop, because it's gonna make you do another loop at the top. So what you need to do is when you're at the top of your loop, cut throttle while you do your extra flip or roll. So if you're doing the power flip, you chop at the top and you do your extra flip so that you don't get a bunch of extra motion. And then throttle up and level out to catch yourself and fly through the obstacle again. Obviously I'm doing really big power flips here because that makes it a lot easier. You've got a lot more time, but you know, if you really want to try to get technical, you can get a lot tighter one. See how tight we can go. But then obviously you're going to need higher rates too. The slower your rates are, the more time you're going to need to do your extra flip. There, I did not have enough and I ended up in the grass. But it's another reason I chose this location, because if I did crash back here, there's at least a chance I hit grass instead of concrete. And that happened 1 out of 2 times, so.
That's all from me. Dan can have his GoPro back. And just like that, we are done.
Alright, IGOWers, I hope the breakdowns from different perspectives will help you find what works best for you, allow you to find your own style of power loop to complete IGOW 5 Preseason Training Ground Challenge number 3, the Nick Burns Power Loops. Good luck and happy whooping!